What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here at GSD Studios. First off, thank you so much for checking out today's content. I'll make this extremely fast, but I need to plug our sponsors that make this show possible. Our first sponsor is PerfectStormNow.com, by far the most effective and affordable real estate agent website and database platform in the industry. It is the system I use to sell 50 plus homes every single month. Check it out at www.perfectstormnow.com. Our second sponsor is my personal 90-day mastery bootcamp, which is, again, my personal real estate agent mentorship program where we spend 90 days together, 12 live sessions. You get daily access to me inside the program. You guys, we go so extremely in-depth. There's nothing that's incomplete about this program. You're going to get all the tools that you need to go out there and crush it inside your real estate business. Make sure to go check us out, www.90daymastery.com. You can watch in-depth videos of exactly what's covered to see if the program is for you. See all the raving testimonials we have from all of the amazing agents and clients that went through the program. So make sure to check us out, www.90daymastery.com. All right, you guys, let's jump on into today's content. What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here at GSD Mode Studios, and we're getting ready to jump into another in-person live podcast here inside the studio. Today's guest, you guys, epic guest. This is actually a repeat guest, a second-time guest. I wanted to bring him in again. Since we had him on the show for the first time, we've become friends, and I've been following his content. The dude is dialed in, right? So in the first podcast, we talked about some tips and talked about a lot of great things, but we really went deep into his own personal journey. But I wanted to re-invite him back in just to go really deep into strategy. So this is a guy that is a financial consultant, and he works with a ton of entrepreneurs, setting up and making sure that you're planning correctly inside your business, inside your personal life, which I know is something that a lot of people need to be paying attention to that they're not focused on. And there's very simplistic, strategic ways to go out there and do it. And we're going to talk about a lot of different tips, from how to get started, how to do it, some high-level tips, how to invest your money, things like life insurance, health insurance, all those things that can be difficult for entrepreneurs to know what path to go, right? So our guest today, Chris Peach, is going to be in the studio here in just a second. We're going to jump into that. All right, what's up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here at GSD Studios with another in-person live here in the studio podcast. So today, you guys, we got a repeat guest on the show. So this is a buddy of mine, very successful entrepreneur, financial expert, digital marketer, just overall badass. And had him on the show, about a year ago, right?
A little over a year ago. It was like, maybe a year and a half, maybe. Yeah, wow.
Yeah. It's so. But I wanted to bring him on a lot. We don't have a lot of repeat guests on the show, but I wanted Chris to come back on because, again, Chris, not only is he a very successful entrepreneur, really my favorite type of an entrepreneur, right? That is into growing huge businesses, but also is into leveling up in his health and fitness and family and all of that. But also, man, this dude's just absolutely brilliant when it comes to finances, for planning for the future. And, I've been reading a lot of statistics lately. And like recently I read one that was only 2% of Americans by the age of 65 actually can retire without being reliant on their family to take care of them. And then it was something like 76% of Americans 65 plus have like less than $25,000 in all of their retirement. So, it's scary times, right? And all of you that are listening, I know you guys are entrepreneurs. We work hard for our money. We like to spend the money that we make. We like to reinvest that money back into our business. But we also got to be very smart with our finances. And I know I've been there, dude, where haven't been smart. Next thing I know, I'm 40 grand short of paying off the IRS, all this different stuff. So you guys, I wanted to bring Chris back in so we could go, deeper. The first episode, which will be linked below, make sure to check that out, which is really about Chris's journey. And this all started because they were in debt and wanted to get out of debt and be able to go out there and really chase their passions and dreams and kind of set their family up better. And it evolved to what he's doing today. So really wanted to go just really high level for you guys, give you guys some massive value so you can go out there and budget correctly. So Chris Peach, welcome to the show, brother.
Wow, I got to say I'm impressed. I haven't had an introduction like that in a while. So thank you. It makes me feel pretty special. So going back to your statistics you were just saying, you're right on. You're right on the money. Right now, 1/3 of Americans don't save anything for retirement. And so that shocks me because, there's a ton of entrepreneurs out there, right? So of course they're in part of that 1/3, and there's nobody coming to save you. All right. If you don't save money for retirement, if you don't save money for, I mean, we all think about this, Josh. We all sit there and think, yeah, eventually I would love to have financial freedom. Eventually I don't want to have debt. Eventually I'd like to retire with dignity. Eventually I want to take the grandkids and, go travel and do these things. But then 1/3 of people aren't saving a nickel for retirement. And we all, I mean, myself included, when you kind of talked about my wife and I hit rock bottom. We went, our rock bottom was we ran out of money completely, deeply in debt, nowhere to go but up. And so looking back at that, we were part of that. And my mindset, and many of your listeners might be thinking this, is, well, I'm just getting started in my business. I don't have time to save money. Or, well, I'm a year into my business right now. I'm gonna reinvest everything back in the business. I'm not gonna really save anything to the side because I don't have time for that. I'll do that later. I'll ignore it right now and I'll do it later. And so I think that has to change.
Yeah.
That has to change. And so you and I, before we hit record on this, we were talking, and I mean, it's impressive. The amount that you set aside for emergencies and that you set aside for investing into yourself, investing back into the business. I mean, this is not normal. And I was telling you, I'm like, I was joking around. I said, Josh, what you're doing is not normal. What you're doing is definitely right, but it's not normal. And I said, most people, the majority, right? Numbers show 2% don't have enough, living with mom and dad, aren't doing what you're doing. So kudos to you. I mean, I think that's important. So, but can I just jump right in and tell people where I think they could start? Because everybody wants to know, like, hey, I just don't know where to start.
Yeah.
Do you hear this ever?
Yeah. But one thing I just wanted to kind of hit on before we get into, and when I say we, I mean you get into the deep strategy because this is your expertise. I just follow brilliant dudes' expertise like you, and it just works for me, right? So, so you're definitely the expert when it comes to that. So, we'll just go deep here in a moment. But I think kind of one important thing to hit on is, we see this not with just finances, but just like with your health and whatever else it may be, right? Just it comes down to that discipline, right? Like I know I didn't start creating any type of financial success or health success until I got disciplined, but the discipline didn't start until I started getting clarity on what I truly wanted, and then to make that a reality, I had to get clear on what I was willing to sacrifice. Right? And can you, I mean, do you, when you're working with your clients and stuff, before you even start talking strategy and things, I mean, do you kind of find a way, because dude, it's tough when you're having to live way below your means and you're seeing all your buddies and your homies and everybody else going out there spending all this money that they really don't have, right? That's going to set themselves, they're going to regret it later in the future. But you got to be disciplined to a point where, you're willing to endure all that pain now. Like that discipline that you and your wife had to go through. Now you're like, hell yeah, dude, we don't have debt. We're in this position, but I'm sure it's massive, massive discipline. So can you kind of hit on that?
Sure.
Like,
So yeah. So when I hear you say massive discipline, right away my guard goes up a little bit, because this is scary, right? I mean, think about any time that you start a change in your life, whether it's diet, whether it's exercise, whether it's money, whether it's business, the guard comes up right away, because you know that it's going to take discipline. You know that it's going to require pain. You know that things are going to change. You want them to change, but for them to change, you have to go through that discipline process, and it's scary. What I will say is I like thinking of it as willpower. Okay, so just like for when I'll start off with just give you an example on diet. Like I want to live long, right? I don't want to be on 40 different meds when I'm 40 years old, right? I want to live long. I want to live a healthy life. I have kids. I want to be there for my kids. So I have to start making daily choices now, so I can live longer, so I can be healthy. And those are the things that just having willpower. So yeah, it's a lot easier for me to never go to the gym, and if I see a cookie, just grab it and eat it. Cookie, grab it and eat it. But I have to have willpower, so I don't do that. Now, in the beginning, if you're not used to doing this, if this is not something that you're used to, in the beginning, this is discipline, right? It's hard. And over time, it just becomes a habit. Yeah. And that's what I relate this to money. I mean, it could be anything in your life. Obviously we've talked about fitness before. For somebody that's never been in the gym, and they're getting ready to go to the gym for the first time ever, this is scary, right? It's a change. It's new. And you come back day one from the gym, that was not a good feeling. I mean, you're sore. You can't get up out of bed. You're thinking, this is going to be forever. Like this is crazy. And now you get to that point where it becomes discipline, willpower, and then it becomes a habit. And then it's just a habit where you think, well, if I don't go to the gym, something's wrong, right? You feel weird, like I didn't go today. I feel kind of weird. Same thing with your money. So just like anything, if you've never managed the money coming in and going out, I mean, I always ask people this, I relate this to them. I say, look, it makes sense that if there's a business over here, let's just say any business, but McDonald's, for example, you're running a McDonald's, you own a McDonald's, and so you're not going to sit there. I mean, it makes sense. You're not going to go, well, yeah, we'll just guess on what comes in this month, what goes out, and we'll see what happens, right? I mean, we'll see, this month, next month, we'll just kind of see what happens. Eventually, that business will go out of business. I mean, you can't last. It's natural for us that we expand, we keep expanding. I mean, so think about this. How many people have you talked to or heard about when you're coaching that they make extra money, but they don't get ahead technically because that money just stretches out? They make extra money. They just keep expanding the walls, right? They keep expanding. The walls expand. So what you got to do is you got to start thinking about going back to this willpower. And I love that word a lot more than discipline, because discipline is important, but discipline is tough if you think about it long term. Where if you have willpower, it's thinking this becomes a habit, right? It just becomes natural habit. So for my wife and I, when we were getting out of debt in the beginning and getting on a budget and paying attention to the finances, this was not like, high-fiving, we love each other so much, this budget thing is great, right? And now it's 7 minutes a month. I don't even think about it. It's a habit, I mean, it doesn't even become an issue. So I think once you start thinking in terms of, I mean, look, I love discipline. Like in my business, I have to remain disciplined. Like the work has to be done. If the work doesn't get done, I'm not going to have success. But in the beginning, if you're not there yet and you're thinking about hitting this incredible change in your life, it's overwhelming. You might be thinking like, God, Joshua Smith is talking about discipline. I want discipline, but does this mean it's forever? Turn into a habit? Then it's not discipline anymore. It's habit.
Yep.
Right? Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, love it, dude. So, and then when it comes to, we'll call it willpower, right? Because then people have this cop out of, well, dude, I just don't have a lot of willpower, right? So it becomes kind of a trained muscle, if you will, because you start off maybe at a lower threshold, and that becomes routine, and then you kind of becomes the habit that you're talking about, and then you can increase that, and so then let's go into that. Then as far as like if somebody's never done this, how do they start with it? Because they may be like I know I had a mentor of mine that just really rocked my world, dude. He looks at me at one point and he goes, you know the difference between me and you, Josh? And he goes, I'm actually rich. You're just trying to prove to the world that you're rich, right? And he goes, you want to become truly wealthy. He goes, you need to learn to operate off of 10% of your income and invest the rest. And man, when I looked at that, I couldn't even fathom it, because I was like the opposite. Like I was like maybe saving 10%, but I didn't start there, right? I was like, okay, I know that that's the end game goal, but let me just take baby steps. I'm at 10% savings right now, and then get to 20%, right? And then, it took a long time to be able to get to the point where, I mean, it took years and years and years, but it wasn't like I had to swallow that pill overnight.
Mm-hmm. So that's exactly what I was going for right there is you hear 10,000 different things out there, right? I mean, in the personal finance world, or even, in your business finances, you're going to pick up this magazine and hear this. You're going to listen to this podcast and hear this. You're going to hear a buddy tell you this. You're going to hear a mentor, and it gets overwhelming. It's the whole paralysis by analysis. I just heard all these different things and I don't know where to start. So I've met some very, very, very successful entrepreneurs that said the first 5 years they never did a profit and loss. They just guessed, and they were like, man, I couldn't believe they were having success. Like they're like, I just kind of checked my bank accounts every week and there's money in there and I felt like I was doing well. And they go, and then I started, paying attention. What gets measured gets managed type thing. So they started managing the money and going, oh my goodness, like we could be so much more profitable in this area. We could cut back here. We could add money here. And it's just like that in your personal life as well. So the number one thing I tell people, I'm a very step-by-step person. I feel like you have to be laser focused on one thing at a time, and once you master that, then move on. It's when you start doing 10 to 20 different things at once, you're half-assing them, right? You're doing just a little bit of effort in each one, and you're not getting a lot of success. So I'm a big fan of laser focus, one step at a time. So whenever I meet with anybody, the first thing I tell them, pay attention to this, because this is hugely important here, is if you don't get this part right that I'm going to tell you right now, then nothing else matters, right? Nothing else matters. And it goes back to what gets measured gets managed. You have to be doing some kind of monthly cash flow plan, call it a budget, call it a cash flow plan, whatever you want, right? But basically, you have to be paying attention to the money coming in and money going out. And if you want to call this little anal, sure. But I'm telling you, you need to know every dollar, right? That money came in. You need to have an assignment for every dollar, because if you don't, that's wasting money. It's going to go somewhere. Basically, there's an old saying that money leaves those who don't know how to handle it, and it goes to those who do, right? So good for the people that do. horrible for the people that don't. So that when I start with people, I say, look, the number one thing we need to do is let's just do something 5th grade math here. It's 5th grade math. Break it down. It's simple. Let's look at the money coming in and the money going out. I call it a budget, right? A lot of people are like, I don't like the word budget. All right, we'll call it a cash flow plan, okay? Soften the blow a little bit. So first thing is, and it's crazy because I'll ask a lot of entrepreneurs this, and a lot of times they don't know because they're not doing, a P&L. They're not doing anything like that. I say, what's your take-home pay? And there's a long pause, So for people out there that have a steady paycheck, they know what that is, right? But if you're an entrepreneur and it's month to month and you're getting commissions that come in at different times, sometimes you don't know simply what is your take-home pay. What I mean is, what hits your bank account? What do you actually have to spend? What are you allocating to spend? That's starting point. Then from there, I go through, and I do this. Stephen Covey, one of my favorite authors, he has that book, 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, okay? And I reference this quite a bit, but that book revolutionized my life because I'm big on habits. I kind of mentioned that earlier, but the number one habit of the most highly successful people in the world, according to Stephen Covey, is they are proactive. They don't wait for life to happen to them. They don't say, oh, crap, this happened, I'm going to react to it. Poor people are reactive. That's the truth. All right, if you want to build wealth, you need to be proactive. I mean, look at you, how proactive you are in your life. I mean, we were just talking for the last hour. I'm like, man, this guy is always thinking 10 steps ahead, right? So that's what a cash flow plan is being proactive. You assign every dollar that you make on paper or in a spreadsheet or however you want to do it, but you assign that dollar a job before the month starts, right? So let's just say let's pretend we're at the end of the month right now. Okay, so we're at the end of the month, then I'm going to sit down and I'm going to go, okay, if I know how much is coming in or I'm assuming how much is coming in, I'm going to work off that. So let's just, I'll use an example. Let's say $5,000, right? So, okay, I'm going to work with this $5,000. So I need to assign all $5,000 of those dollars to something before the month starts, right? Then when the month starts, you just follow that plan. It's your plan. People are like, oh, I don't like doing budgets. They're so restrictive. I feel like it's, prison, bread and water. It's the worst thing ever. I'm like, no, you're in control of it. Instead of your life being controlled by being reactive, by your own money mistakes, you're being proactive. You're telling it what to do, right? You're in the driver's seat. You could tell it whatever you want to do, right? There's no right or wrong answer. You get to decide, okay? So you go through there and you just assign every single dollar, and then you follow the plan. Now, month one's going to suck because you've never done this before. Let me ask you this. How good of a driver were you when you turned 16?
Yeah, pretty shitty.
All right? Now you think about it, man, you could drive down the street. You can, be talking on the phone, you could be doing 10 different things and not even realize you're doing it, right? You could drive across town and not realize how you got there, okay? It's the same thing with anything you do in life, right? Fitness, diet, anything. Same thing with your money. So if you can, I tell people this is kind of the statistics that I found, that 60 to 90 days, 2 to 3 months, if you can stick to this plan, if you can create a cash flow plan for 2 to 3 months, because month one's going to suck, right? You're going to be like, this doesn't work. The number one thing I hear people say is, I tried doing a budget or a cash flow plan. It just didn't work for us, right? How long did you try? Well, the first month went horrible. Of course it did, right? You're not any good. Month 2, you're going to say, okay, I figured out what we did wrong last month. I think we can correct those. And then month 3, you're going to be like, this is automatic now, right? So, I always tell people, this is kind of funny to say, but the biggest raise that I've ever received in my working lifetime hasn't been from work. It's been from managing the money coming in and going out. Because as I made more, I didn't lose more, right? As I increased my income, it wasn't going out in the hole in the bucket. So very simple. If you want to get a raise, step 1, get yourself on a cash flow plan. Follow the plan. My wife and I literally 7 to 10 minutes a month. Okay, so what's the investment? 7 to 10 minutes a month for the rest of my life, right? You always say, I love your saying, there's 168 hours a week. How are you going to assign those hours? Let's do 7 to 10 minutes a month where you just pay attention to the money coming in and going out. And it's the biggest raise you will receive in your working lifetime because it's consistent. It's ongoing. Every time more money comes into your life, it's not going out that hole in the bucket. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And so that you have to start there. And if you don't master this, if you can't do this, then nothing else I say really matters. I mean, you'll have success, but you're going to have a lot of heartache too. That you don't need, right? You can avoid so much of this pain because once you have this budget, you can assign things like saving, investing, emergency funds, business account, tax accounts inside your cash flow plan.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. When people say that, oh, how'd the first month go? And they're like, oh, not good, so I stopped, right? So this okay, you're just going to continue then with shitty for the rest of your life. Like to me, I can't fathom people's thought processes of it, but it is what it is. But when you start with this, so let's just speak to entrepreneurs, which is most of our listeners. do you recommend right out of the gate starting doing this for your business and then separately for your personal, or just to get them into that routine, get them into that where it becomes willpower, do you just start with one so it's not that much overwhelming all at once?
So that's a great question, and I'm gonna be honest with you. I think you need to do two separate things, right? So I work with a lot of entrepreneurs who are small business owners, and so a lot of times they mix their personal checking account and their business accounts, and they float into each other, and then they lose track of how much did we make last month, because some of the business account paid the mortgage, but our personal account bought groceries. We went out to eat on the business account, but then we're going to they were just overwhelmed, right? So I say, look, you need to have a separation. And so if you're 100% money coming in from your business, like you're not doing it, you're 100% focused on your job as an entrepreneur, and that's where all the money's coming from. So here's what I teach: is I tell people, look, have your personal budget over here. So everything personal, your mortgage, your or rent, your utilities, all that kind of stuff is lined up over here. Your business is going to be different, right? Because there's different expenses. And then what I tell people is you're going to pay yourself out of your business account, right? So you have your business account over here, your income for the month, we're going to say, remember take-home pay. Your take-home pay is basically going to come out of your business, and your business is going to have a section in there, it's going to say income or whatever you want to call it, paycheck, right? Pay yourself a paycheck. So budgeting is obviously a lot easier when you can create some kind of steadiness, right? So what I see a lot of times too is entrepreneurs have, sometimes they're seasonal entrepreneurs. They have something seasonal maybe towards Christmas time or towards tax time or something like that, where they're going to make a lot more money and they pay themselves a lot more. So what I would say is, if you can create some consistency, whenever you can create consistency in expenses or in income, it makes things a lot easier, right? I tell people all the time, it's nice to do your mortgage because it's the same each month, right? It's nice to do cable or your car payment because it's the same each month. So if you can take things and make them the same on a monthly basis, you're going to have so much more success because it's so much easier. Now, take the same thing on your business account. If you can say, look, no matter what, we're going to pay ourselves about this much. So when you have a high month, right, then you're still going to pay yourself the normal income, right? And then the down months, you're gonna have the money in the account, those reserves. Now, sometimes people are like, I don't get paid sometimes every 3 to 4 months, right? So what I would say in that situation is you need to create some kind of buffer, or you can pay yourself a couple months behind. So what does that mean? Let's say that you get paid in May, right? So here's the income that came in your business in May. This is actually going to represent July's income for your personal budget. So if you're just a couple months behind, it's just a lot easier to forecast.
Right.
Yeah. Do you do something similar like that with your own?
Yeah. So in all my businesses, I really have three main things that I'm tracking, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm going to track all of the numbers that create the revenue, right? So then I can create an ROI on each of those, because I want to know when you talk about tracking every single dollar. Like I always say, learn to track. So when it comes to your time, learn to track seconds. When it comes to your money, learn to focus and pay attention to pennies, right? So pennies and seconds. Because I would find myself like, oh, that's only a few bucks, or only a few minutes. Well, those very quickly add up, right?
Sure.
So we know exactly then. Let's just say, for example, I'm running Facebook ads. Like okay. I know right now it's we convert 1 out of 47 leads, right? So and it costs me X per lead. So then I know per client acquisition maybe it's $250. Mm-hmm. Then maybe my average commission is $6,500. Right? And then from there, of course, then we have, so that's the revenue coming in. Then we have our P&L or business P&L that is tracked. And then I have my personal financial budget from there. So just like you talked about, and I'm tracking everything from, even, housekeeping. I mean, every single cent that goes out, no matter what it's on. And I love that because like you said, what's tracked is and what's measured grows and you pay attention to it. But I hate spending money, dude. Right? And I don't know why. Maybe it's just because I had no money for so long. Of the majority of my life or whatever, so it creates pain in my world. Mm-hmm. So when I'm paying attention to, holy shit, I literally spent $350 at Starbucks. Like it creates that pain where it creates a different sense of awareness. Right?
Let me ask you this though: do you dislike spending money in your business?
If I shouldn't say I don't dislike spending money. I absolutely dislike and hate waste.
Okay, there's a total difference because sometimes I think people, they assume that spending money always means waste. right? Like I overspend, I overwaste money. And you look at that, go, well, some of that stuff that you're spending money on might be a waste, but some of it's intentional, right? You need it. You need to have, like if you're working 3 jobs, right? And you feel like your house cleaner at $80 a month is a waste. That's not a waste because you're working 3 jobs. You can go out and earn more income while your housekeeper is, working. But if you go out and you spend, $350 on Starbucks and you're like, I don't remember even getting that much coffee. Yeah, you wasted some money, that kind of stuff. So, but I'm okay with. So that's another thing too. Is there's this thing out there where I hear so many people think that budgeting means you can no longer spend money, and I think that's why so many people are so afraid to even start it. I mean, it's so obvious, right? It's so obvious that we should be paying attention to the money coming in and going out. I've never heard anybody say, "Yeah, it's not for me." Like they know it's for them, they just don't want to do it, right? They know deep down that like, yeah, if I don't pay attention to the money, I know if I eat donuts for the rest of my life, I'm going to be diabetic, right? So I know if I don't pay attention to the money coming in and going out, eventually, I mean, I always hear this. I can't tell you how many times I hear this, like, yeah, I need to meet with you. I'm not ready, but man, I definitely need to meet with you. I am hurting. And I'm like, why are we meeting, right? I mean, that, but it's the whole thing. Well,
they're freaked out.
I'm just not ready to stop spending money, and I'm like, here's the deal, right? You can still spend money, right? You can do whatever you want with your money, but let's just spend the money you have, right? Don't spend other people's money because money goes to those, money leaves those who don't know how to handle it, and it goes to those who do with interest, right? So people on the one side of it, there's that separation right there, that mindset. When I learned that, Josh, I was thinking, remember when I first learned that money leaves those who don't know how to handle it and goes to those who do, I started looking back over the last like 5-10 years of my life, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is true. I definitely helped some people out in their careers, right?
Yeah.
I made them some money by doing stupid things with my own money. So, but yeah, step one, I mean, definitely pay attention to the money. And if you're thinking like, ooh, I could hear somebody, or I'm picturing somebody driving in their car and they're nodding their head right now saying, yeah, I do need to get on a budget, but stop the but. Do it. What's the worst that can happen? I mean, it's not going to hurt, right? Just do it. Tell yourself this, look, I'm disciplined. I have willpower. What's 60 to 90 days of my life, right? 60 to 90 days. If you can get through that process, I promise you it's going to be automatic, just like anything. 60 to 90 days. Don't give up. Tell yourself right now, I'm not going to give up. It's 2 to 3 months, and when I get through it, this guy, Chris, he says that I'll be, sailing smoothly, and you will, right? You will. And if you're really exceptional, it's going to be 2 months, right?
Right.
And if you're somebody that's sometimes like me, a little thick-headed, you're like, wait a second. It might be 4 months, so we use an average of 3 months. So that's step one.
Yeah, no, and you're so right, man. When people hear the budget, they think of it as like such a negative thing. Just like if they hear the word diet, they're like, oh, but that means that I'm out of shape, so that's a diet. Or I need a budget, that means that I'm broke and I don't have any money. I don't know what your experience has been, but I do everything I can to surround myself with the most successful people that I possibly can. And and I've even been fortunate and blessed to be able to spend and hang out with several billionaires now at this point in my life. And I don't know anybody that's created massive success when it comes to, at least let's just speak of finances here, that doesn't budget, right? Success leaves clues, dude, right? And and it tends to be the more successful they are, the more they're paying attention to every single penny.
Yeah, you're so right. So I haven't had the opportunity hanging out with any billionaires yet, but I'll need you to introduce me to some. But had some. Actually, I do have a mentor. He's helped me with this too. But so I've interviewed on my own podcast a couple multimillionaire retirees, small business owners, and I mean it is they're adamant that what gets measured gets managed, in their personal life, in their business life. And the reason why they've had success is because of this principle. They don't waste money, right? They don't, kind of like how you said, you don't like spending, you don't like wasting money. They don't waste money either. And so you're exactly, the most successful people that I've met, that I've interviewed, they pay attention to, like you said, every penny, right? They're extremely efficient with their money. Doesn't mean they're tight with their money. They just make sure that, they worked really hard. Yeah. That money is going to go to something, it's not going to be wasted. It's not going to be blown, right? They're intentional, right? It's all about being intentional, right? Paying attention.
Yeah, and Brian Tracy, one of my favorite sales books is Brian Tracy's
The Psychology of Selling?
Yeah,
me too.
He talks in there so heavily about, people's spending behaviors being really tied to their own personal self-confidence, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, if in your mind you think that you're only really deep down worth 40 grand a year because maybe that's all you've ever made, that's all your parents ever made. Now you make your first 100 grand a year and you're the first person to go blow it in Vegas. Mm-hmm. Whereas your self-confidence level increases of what what's possible, you start stuffing away that money because you want that to say yes to other opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
I view everything as a trade-off. If I use this dollar to go spend over here, that would be something of waste. That may then prohibit me from being able to go make this big investment, or whatever over here that could take my wealth to the next level, and it becomes so huge. So then, when it comes to so we've got these budgets or whatever the term is that people feel comfortable with.
Cash flow plan. It's very soft and nice and cute.
Yep. So for dudes with a small vocabulary like me, man, I got to use the basics. So anyway, when it comes to that, so okay, we've got a personal. Personal is a little bit more simplistic, right? Because you're just talking. Yeah, you got your mortgage, you got your cable. I mean, you got everything in there that you're noting. But when it comes to business, because it's not just enough to know what's coming in and what's going out, and maybe that's where they start, just so they can have that awareness, right, of what the true picture looks like. But then from there, how do you recommend that they then start kind of allocating that? Because I want to sit there and eventually be able to see what sources my income coming in from, like what percentages, so I know what's working, what's not working. And then same thing with my expenses, like what percentage is payroll, what percentage is lead gen, and then even kind of creating subcategories, if you will, in there. So what then is step 2 with that? I mean, is it getting more specific and breaking down?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, you don't want to. I wouldn't go super like subcategories starting from the get go, because you're gonna get overwhelmed, right? But if you're just starting, right? So say you're starting, you have a small business, you're an entrepreneur, you're starting it, or maybe you're even a couple years in, and I've met a couple people that said, I was 5 years into my business before I even paid attention to that kind of stuff. Is some of the when I meet with clients, I'll say, so with your business, what's your profit margins? And they just look at me with a blank stare, right? And that's something I think that's an easy start, right? I mean, just look at what's coming in, right? And it's there's no, I always tell people, there's no right or wrong answer here with that, because different businesses are different, right? I mean, if you're in the online space and it's all digital, it's going to be a little bit different versus if you're a product base, and you have higher costs, it's going to be different. So people always say, well, what should it be? I'm like, well, you need to start looking at that over time. Like month 1, let's say that you have a 40% profit margin, and then month 2, 3, you're at 19, 20, 21, and then you have another one that's 40. Then you can start looking at saying, okay, what's going on in these months right here? Why am I having, why is it so up and down? And then you can sometimes, what people see is they recognize, like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize this was going on in my business, right? Then once you get there, then from there, then let's start breaking down is, okay, how much of my my expenses is payroll taking up, or how much of my expenses is this taking up? How much? And then you look. So then you start seeing it on paper. What gets measured gets managed in every aspect of your budgeting or your business or whatever you're talking about. So what gets measured gets managed. You start looking at a paper, going, wow, like I'm spending so much money over here, but this isn't really driving any income or the amount of income to my business. I'm still profitable, but man, if I got rid of this section over here, right? Because this is, if we go down to subcategories, this could be negative. You don't realize it because these are in the green. So you look at going, wait a second, if I can get rid of this, and this is happening. Some people are thinking, man, I've overhired. I didn't realize I've overhired, or, I wanted to free up some time in my own business, so I hired some people to fill in those hours. And like you were just saying, every little dollar counts, right? Well, all of a sudden, every hour counts. And they start looking, going, man, we are not as profitable as we think. We have more money coming in, but we're also sending way more out. If you just can start subcategorizing and pay attention to each of those categories, that's huge. But in step 1, before you go in depth like that, especially depending on how big your business is, how diverse it is, just look at, overall, just start there. Money coming in, gross versus, your expenses. What's your profit margins? And then start identifying that. And if you've been tracking this over the last, months, years, go back and look, is there any kind of trend that you can see? And when you identify those trends, again, going back to earlier what I said, one of the biggest raises you'll receive is when you get, you start managing the money, start paying attention to it. That's the same thing. It's the same principle. It just transverses to your business, to your personal life. It goes in both ways. So when you can start doing that, and it's not funny, it's sad, but a couple weeks ago I was sitting down with a client, and they have a successful standalone store. I mean, it's very successful. They do very well. And I said, well, let's look at your profit margins. And he goes, I don't know what that is, and I'm like, don't worry. I mean, it's because when were we ever taught how?
Right, never.
I mean, seriously, when were we ever taught these things? So what are we just supposed to go through the school of hard knocks, I guess, right? Or listen to the GSDMO podcast.
Yep, yeah. That's it, man. Yeah. So, well, and then too, like I've because when things are going really good, it's when things are going bad that people kind of, tends to wake them up a little bit. But even when things are going good, the importance of this is like you may discover, hey man, I'm doing these 3, let's just say, new activities to generate new business, and you might discover, hey, this one over here is bringing me a 400% return, which is good, but up here this is a 700% return, right? So I mean, I've and this has happened multiple times to me over my career in different businesses where we've X'd everything that's already working and just went chips all in with that one thing, because that return is so massive, right? But you can't make those decisions, dude, if you're not tracking, man. And tracking is, the path is in the math, dude, and 100%.
So going back, you're gonna kind of springboard me into the next thing. So you just talked about how you shut those 3 things down and you were able to put in all your chips in one, right? Which is risky. It could be. But why were you able to take a risk? And that's kind of what I say step 2 is you have to be setting aside reserves, right? Have you ever had a bad day in business?
Thousands.
Okay, have you ever had a bad month?
Yeah, tons.
Okay, there you go. So it's going to happen, right? It is going to happen. I have yet to interview or meet anybody who's super successful that hasn't had, 90 losses to every 10 wins, right? I mean, it's like, but they had one real big one, right? 80-20 rule, whatever however you look at it. But no one has ever had a tremendous amount of success without having a ton of failure to go along with it. I think you have to have that. And so if it's going to happen, we know it's going to happen, right? Then why don't we prepare for it? And what I mean by that is you need to be building some kind of reserve, some kind of emergency fund. So let me just start off with personal, right? So recently I was just reading that 6 out of 10 people out there cannot write a check for $1,000, which $1,000 is not a lot of money. I mean, it doesn't get you far at all. So 6 out of 10 people cannot write a check for $1,000 in their personal budget. In their business, that's different, but in their personal, right? So let's start off with, what if you just set aside, as soon as possible, like maybe tomorrow if you have it, you set aside $1,000 to $2,000, and you set aside that. And hey, this was tough for me because I'm like thinking, well, I could be taking that money and I can be investing it, or I could place it over here in the business, or I could be doing all these cool things with it. What do you mean you want me to take this money and just set it aside and do nothing with it? It's going to be used soon, right? Because crap or shit happens, right? I can say that, right?
Yeah, it's shit done one.
All right, yeah, that's right. All right, so it's going to happen, right? So in your personal life, I say, obviously you need to have some kind of reserve. So I would say if you're an entrepreneur, you need to have minimum 6 months of, I call them bare bone expenses. And the reason why is if you could have more than there, that's great. But 6 months bare bone expenses, meaning look at your cash flow plan, your budget, and say, okay, I'm looking at this. If I lose my job, or we close up shop, or whatever happens, what do I need to live off of for 6 months, right? You're not going to be going on lavish vacations, so the vacation fund gets shut down, right? You're not going to be probably having 400 channels on DirecTV, right? You're going to shut that down. So look at, like, obviously I got to have the mortgage, got to keep the lights on, got to get food, groceries, transportation, all that kind of stuff. Look at your bare bones, and then I would say, because being an entrepreneur is a little bit risky, right? You're not guaranteed a check every month or every week for just showing up, right? Sometimes you show up and you don't get paid. So 6 months minimum, 6 months of expenses. So I mean, most starting off, a lot of people that I've worked with over the last couple of years, that's anywhere from like the $15,000 to $30,000 range. Okay. Now some of you might be thinking no problem, and then there might be some people driving right now thinking that is a ton of money. Because remember, 6 out of 10 don't have $1,000 to write a check. So let's start off with $2,000, right? If you can set aside $2,000, what will happen, Josh, is as soon as you set aside this money and you don't keep it in your checking account, you don't go and spend it on something stupid, you just set it aside and it does nothing. It actually costs you money because you're not investing it, right? It's sitting there doing nothing. You set that aside. What you start doing is you start believing that, okay, I just did something I've never done before. I'm setting aside this money and I'm planning on using it if there's an emergency, because everybody listening has had some kind of emergency, whether the hot water heater went out, whether your car broke down, whether you had to go to the hospital for something, whatever it might be, right? And so when you have that set aside, you start believing that you can handle money the right way, right? It's a huge step. But doing the budget's still number one. But as soon as you can set aside some money like that, you're gonna have this belief. You're gonna be motivated. Going back to Brian Tracy, I like myself. I like myself. It's kind of like that. You're like, oh my gosh, I did this. I'm excellent. I did this. I save money. I save money. I save money. And it's this huge turning point. Now, $2,000 is not a lot of money, but if the average person can't write a check for $1,000, it is. It's like thinking, well, I made $100,000 last year. $2,000 is not a lot of money. Then why aren't people saving it, right? And then in your business, you need to be doing the same. And we had talked about this earlier. You had mentioned that, you saved up and saved up and saved up and saved up for reserves early on in business. You lived on less than you made. 10% is what your mentor had told you. So you're saving money in different areas over here. And so not only does that protect you against the emergencies that are going to happen, the down months that are going to happen, the stuff that, you didn't plan on, it's going to allow you to take a little more risk in your business. And really, on the outside looking in, you think that's a lot of risk. But for you, it's not, because you've protected yourself. You built this little security blanket over here. So when you go all in, right, you shut these things down, we're going to go all in. It's not make or break for you, right? Because you have these reserves over here. So you always have to be thinking about, having some kind of reserves. And the people with reserves are the ones that end up winning. And what I mean by that is, if you go back in time and you look at, when the market crashed, things went bad, businesses closed up, the ones that stayed in business, the ones that flourished, were the ones that had reserves to get them through that point so they could pivot. And the ones that didn't closed up shop. Yeah. And then once you make that pivot, you had those reserves. Now the business is yours, right? Because everybody else is gone. Yep. And so a couple of people I talked to, I'll give you an example. A buddy of mine, he does a lot of real estate investing, and he's like, I remember during the upswing that I sensed that soon things were gonna have to slow down. So he goes, I just started every commission I got, I just started socking away money. He's like, it was, we're in the couple 100,000 range now. We're holding it over here, and my wife thinks I'm crazy. His mentor's thinking, why are you sitting on cash, right? What are you doing? He says the market tanked, and he goes, dude, it was freaking blue light special, man. I went around and I bought real estate everywhere for cash, got a deal, 10 cents on the dollar on some of these properties, and now it worked out, right? Yep. And why? Is because he sat on that cash, because he was like, well, it's either going to be for my emergency, but then he had the opportunity. So you have to be saving money. Step 1, get yourself on a budget. Step 2, save money. Live on less than you make.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more, man. And I've had two, just in my real estate business alone, I'm going on my 12th year, and I've had 2 different times where I've had to go 6 months without a paycheck. And this isn't when I first started, right? I mean, this has been since, building the business. But those times were during those market shifts or whatever, where we were able to be kind of the firefighter, right? You're running in when everybody else is running out. Mm-hmm. And I was able to go into massive growth mode, not take a paycheck, reinvest that, because I knew we were able to. I mean, we had to take advantage of that opportunity. And those have been really probably the most monumental growth times in our company, but I would have never been in that position if I didn't have those reserves, right? Yeah. To a 6 months without a paycheck is kind of gnarly to even fathom, right? But it puts you in a unique position for sure.
Absolutely.
All right, so so people have got these reserves. So let's just say they get to 6 months or a year, or I guess it kind of boils down to their own personal risk tolerance, right, of what they're comfortable with. So let's just say they've got that comfortable element there. Then when it comes into future investments, right, because again, we just know what this retirement plan looks like. And what scares me the most is I don't think people are really truly prepared for what's to come, especially like, a lot of people that are in mine and your age group category. It's like, okay, when you hear these stats of only 2% of Americans can retire at the age of 65 without being relying on family to take care of them. What I look at it is then, okay, well, I don't want my wife and I to be in that position, right? So I've got to plan for us. We got 3 little kids that we got to plan for. I need to plan for her and I for retirement and for our future, whatever. But we have 3 sets of parents, right? So my parents are divorced, but they're both remarried, and her sets of parents, right? And so I'm sitting there like, okay, not only do I got to take care of us, but there's a good chance that most of us, especially in our age group, because of just how things people have been preparing, that we have to take care of our parents too. Right? So there's a lot that's to come that people need to be prepared for, and I don't think people really have that awareness, right? A conversation that my wife and I, because it's, as an entrepreneur, we're grinding so much, right? And we need that buy-in from our significant other to support us. And, so I'll have conversations like, is an example, okay, we've got 3 kids. Now, between my wife and I, we both have 2 brothers. So she's got 2 brothers, I have 2 brothers. We're all in different states. We're all scattered. So it's like, okay, babe, more likely than not, based on the economy, our 3 kids are going to be in that same position. Like, do you want to be in a position where once they're married and have kids, where any time that you're missing your grandkids or anytime you want to help them out, you can jump on an airplane, no questions asked, and be there? Right? And then, of course, the answer is yeah, okay. Well, who's in that position to be able to do that? Like, none of our parents are in that position to do that. They may only be able to see their grandkids once a year if they're lucky, right? So if we want to be in that position to be able to do that, we've got to make these decisions, called discipline, called whatever we want to call it. We've got to be smart now to plan for when that time comes, so I like to have a lot of these small conversations. So we don't ever have to have these big conversations. So then when it comes to, okay, you've got the reserves.
Yep.
Then what's a strategic plan to grow from there? Because we want to be able to grow our business, but then we need to also grow, investments and whatever else that may be for that future.
Yeah. So this is the part about money that's fun, right? So starting a budget, sometimes you're thinking this isn't going to be fun, right? But it's necessary. It's like getting gas in your car. It's not fun, but it's necessary to get from point A to point B. Saving money and not spending that money, just putting it in a bucket and saving it for, the inevitable, that's not fun. Growing money, now that's fun. I would say that's the second most fun you'll ever have with money. So when I look at this, I say, I want you just to take, so this, I always tell people, this is, if I could teach an 18-year-old kid, right, an 18-year-old kid or a college student one thing, right, only one thing, this would be it right here. So I tell people this, okay? I looked this up. The average income right now in North America is just under $50,000, okay? So let's just say average income, okay? I know a lot of your listeners are thinking, this is not enough money for me. I don't want it to be enough money for you. We're just using average numbers, okay? So $50,000 a year household income in North America, okay? Now, if you were to invest 15% of that, that's $625 a month, okay? So $625 a month, and you do this for 30 years. So from age 20 to age 50, age 30, age 60, for 30 years. You do this in a 30-year working lifetime, okay? You would end up with about $800,000 to $900,000 right there. We're using an 8% return on that example. 8% I don't think is very good for long term, right? My financial advisor told me if I don't get you 8%, fire me over 30 years, right? Up and down, but average over 30 years. So I use that example and I say, okay, here's the deal. I just told you if you make $50,000 a year, you never once get a raise, right? You work for 30 freaking years and you never make another dollar. And you invest $625 of that, or $7,500 a year, 15% of that money for 30 years, you would have close to $900,000, right? So let's just say you're a little bit better than average and you get a raise during that time, okay? Then it's safe to say that you would retire a millionaire, okay? Now, pause, right? Because you think, wow, that sounds cool, retiring a millionaire. So, but here's the truth. $1 million I don't think is enough. And here's the reason why. I mean, people might be thinking, what are you talking about? $1 million, that sounds like a lot. Okay. But let's look at what it looks like over the course of long term. So if you retire at age 55, right? And let's say that you make it to 85. So you have 30 years left, right? If you were to draw off that, that's only about $45,000 a year to draw off that $1 million. So that's not even average income. So keep that in mind. And the reason why I use that example is I want you to be thinking in your mind that $1 million is no longer enough. Right? 30 years ago, $1 million was enough, but $1 million is no longer enough. You need to have more than that set aside. So where do you start? Right? Okay, this sounds great. And now I know I need to save more money than I thought possible. So where do you start? So I'm a big fan as you need to diversify your money. Okay. First of all, you need to be saving money into investments. So where should I start? Well, for those of you who have never invested before, I would say let's start with 15 to 20%, right? People might think that's crazy. Well, guess what? If you get rid of your debt, you live on a budget, you save some reserves up, you'll have that money to invest. So let's just say you're starting day one. All right, I'll commit to 15%. You've been doing 0, so that's a lot better. I think you should do a little bit more, upwards in the 20% range. So 15% of your income, where should you be putting that money? So I'm a big fan of putting money in different categories. There's pre-tax and after-tax buckets. So kind of give you an example. So a traditional IRA, or if you work somewhere, you have a 401k with a match, that all that money goes in, Josh, before taxes. It's pre-tax money. So that money bypasses the government. It goes into this account. Okay. Right now you can do $18,000 a year in these accounts. So you put money in those accounts, they grow tax-free, which is a huge benefit. Okay. They grow tax-free. So you're not paying any capital gains tax on that. So you just bypass taxes 2 ways. Went in tax-free, grows tax-free. Now, the stipulation is you can't touch that money without a penalty till you're 59 and a half. Okay. which is right around retirement age. So you get to age 59 and a half. Now you have this money in there, right? You have this money sitting there, but it's never been taxed. Now the government likes to tax money. So basically what happens is whatever you draw out of that account is going to be taxed like income. So if you draw 50,000 out, it's going to be taxed like you made 50. If you draw $1 million out, you're going to get taxed like you made $1 million. Okay. So keep that in mind. Those are pre-tax accounts. Now you have this option over here. It's called a Roth IRA. I'm another big fan of Roths because it's the opposite. So it's saving for retirement. You can save in the same type of funds you can in your pre-tax stuff, mutual funds, stocks, bonds, real estate, anything like that. Okay. On the other hand, you have these Roth IRAs. So a Roth IRA, what it does is money goes in after taxes. So you're taxed on it, and then you actually send it to the Roth account, right? It doesn't come out pre-tax. It's after tax. It grows tax-free, but it comes out tax-free. So why is this important? So let's say you're in retirement, right? And you have 2 buckets of money. And let's say you did really well and you have $1.5 million in each one. So you have a $3 million nest egg. By the way, if we said $1 million gets you about $40,000 a year, this means you can live off $120,000 a year, okay? So you have $3 million in your nest egg, 1.5 in each, right? And you want to go buy a cabin for your family so the grandkids and everything can come up and enjoy that. All right, which account do you take out of? Well, if you want to pay cash for this, you don't have to worry about that. If you take out of the pre-tax account, you're going to pay whatever you pay on that. Let's say it's a $300,000 property. You're going to take that money out of your pre-tax account and you're going to pay taxes on it like you made $300,000. If you have your Roth IRA account over here and you pull out $300,000, it's $300,000. You need to diversify. You need to be doing both. High income earners, a lot of these people listening to the podcast, I guarantee you are high income earners as well. I think it's 190,000 married or higher. You're outside of a Roth. You can no longer use Roth. There's a back door. You just pay the tax on it. The tax that you would the tax you do a conversion. And so I always tell clients that if you can do that, absolutely do it. Now this goes back to, well, it costs money to convert that. Yeah, but you're living on a budget and you're saving money. You have an emergency fund. You have different funds set up, a tax fund. So that is where I would say you need to start. You need to start looking at both pre-tax, after-tax accounts. And then here's my other take on this. So there is a shift going on right now with investing, right? There's definitely a shift going on where just 10 years ago, maybe 10, 15 years ago, the way you would invest money is you'd go sit down with a financial advisor. You guys talk about your goals. You'd go over everything. And then that human would set up a plan for you based on your risk tolerance and what your goals are, where you're at. And that's how you invested. And so just like anything, things are shifting over to robo-investing, okay? So robo-investing it's getting to the point where, there's the intermediate part, but it's almost 100% now computer generated. So stuff that advisors sometimes would take 2 or 3 days to accomplish. So like if the market shifted, they'd have to rebalance. They might be able to do that quickest in a day, right? In the robo side, it's less than a second. It's always, so we have been in the last, 8 years, 7 years, we've been in an up market. And robo-investing has worked. People who've been robo-investing, it's a lot cheaper, right? Because you don't have human beings you have to pay. It's computers. So your expenses the cost that you would have to invest is a lot cheaper. What I want to see is what happens when things go down. So as we're, slowly climbing, we're in this bull market, meaning the markets are going up, right? Things are going well. What goes up must come down. Eventually this is gonna, it's always happened this way. It can't go up forever. So I would say just be careful of that. For people who are, leaning really hard on robo-investing, I'm not predicting anything. I'm just curious to see what happens when things go bad, right? You're going to have a robot investing for you. You're not going to have your financial advisor saying, hang in there, Josh. Hang in there. We've been through this storm before. So I want to pay attention to that. Just be aware of it. Personally, I do a mixture of both. I have both, a human advisor helping me, and I also do the robo-investing.
So when you're going long term though, man, because like in the last market crash, it's everybody freaking out.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, I lost X amount of dollars. I'm like, all right, well, it's just kind of like pretend money. It's real money, right? But I always look at it of like, dude, if the market crashes and I lose a bit of equity in my house, like it doesn't really concern me until I sell.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not looking at selling any real estate for a long freaking time, if ever. Right? So when it comes to that, how concerned should people get when they go through these ups and downs? Because this is a long-term strategy,
sure.
Right? So should people really be let it affect them that much? Because I know some people lose so much sleep over,
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. Because it's declining at this point. And it's like, look, dude. Well, to me, the decline's that much greater. It just means you can that $600 that your monthly investment is just buying that much more.
Mm-hmm.
Go have more heavy into it.
The only people that get hurt on a roller coaster are the ones that jump off.
Yeah.
So in your business, Josh, when you had the rough months, right? You didn't stop because you knew long term, you had this long term vision, this long term goal. So when you had a down month, you didn't jump out and say, nope, I'm going to go reinvent the wheel and go start a whole new business, right? You wrote it out. So, that's why I'm a big fan of, still that human interaction with a financial advisor, because if you're someone that's not going to be able to self-motivate yourself or discipline yourself to keep you through that process, then maybe robo investing isn't for you, right? But if you know that, look, hey, what goes up must come down. And when things go down, I have a 20, 30-year plan. I'm going to buy blue light special, mutual funds, right? They're going to be dirt cheap. And so instead of buying a mutual, I'm going to get way more bang for my buck. And kind of like what you just said, I'm thinking long-term plan. So if you're able to think long-term in your goals for your business, right? You know that you're going to take a little risk here and there, and you know what? They're not all going to win, right? You're going to have some downfalls. Then keep that same mentality for your investing, right? I mean, over time, we can never predict the future, right? But over time, the ones that just stayed in and never jumped out, Warren Buffett talks about this all the time. The ones that just stayed in consistently and never jumped out, never tried to get fancy, they just stayed in for the long term, ended up with the most money.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm a big fan of going off of, we can't predict the future, but here is a long, long track record, almost a 100-year track record of, the people that stay in long term win.
Yep.
Keep that in mind.
So when you're investing that money, because you talked about, okay, $1 million 30 years ago was a lot of money. Today it's not, right? Mm-hmm. So it's something like I don't know, $100,000 a year in 1990 is the equivalent of like $284 today. Mm-hmm. Like everybody gets so like that $100,000 a year mark is like so sexy to those that aren't making it, and then you make $100,000 a year today, and you're like, shit, I'm so broke, right?
Sure.
So how do we? I mean, do you? Let's just say, okay, I want to grow this, and I'm not going to touch this for 40 years, but I want to plan on $100,000 a year lifestyle that this is paying me today. How much money then would I need in there for 40 years to live that same lifestyle? I know it's just based on the past. I mean, we can't predict the future with that, but do you take that into account too? Because
you should. So, I mean, inflation's about 3.5% over. Right now it's a little bit lower, but if you look at just going back 80 to 100 years, about 3.5% a year is what the inflation rate is. So, that's the number I use. I just say 3.5%. If I want to make sure I'm padded extra good, 5%. So, yep.
And then what are your thoughts on, so like maybe somebody isn't really a fan of paper assets, right? They really want to invest in real estate, but they don't have the, $300,000 to go put down an apartment building. But there's a lot of these vehicles where you can put money in, you can grow it, and then you can borrow against it tax-free, right, to roll it in as a down payment on an investment property. What are your thought processes on something like that?
So, it's funny you asked that. I just had this conversation with somebody the other day. So I think it was on Motley Fool, which is a finance website that I, check out. And so they had this article, and it wasn't political, but what they showed is they showed Donald Trump's net worth in 1980. Okay. And they took Donald Trump's net worth in 1980, and he was powerhouse in real estate, right? He went all in on real estate. And they showed that if he would have, instead of taking that money and instead of going into real estate, went into the stock market, went into, just regular, is that what you're talking about? Investing into like mutual fund stocks, bonds, and all that kind of stuff. He would have had more money, right? He would have had twice as more. However, he got paid quicker on the real estate. So like I say, diversify, have both. Right? Have both. I have a good friend that he's a 50-50 guy, right? He puts 50% in real estate, 50% into the market. And, in down markets, he's buying blue light specials, what he calls them. He's like, I'm buying blue light special stocks in the down markets, and my rental properties are still paying me the same.
Yeah.
Right. And in just like anything in a down market, rent goes up because people can't buy houses right now. There's a demand for that rent. So he actually in a down market is buying blue light special because he's diversified and his rent's increasing a little bit.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't go all eggs in one or the other. I think you need to be diversified, just like anything, right? We don't want to be all in stocks. We don't want to be all in bonds. We don't want to be, all in real estate, I'd say. But so if you're somebody too, like you said, you don't have a ton of real estate, then you can do REITs. You can invest in real estate that way through, through exchange traded funds and stuff like that. So if you have that real estate bug, but it sounds like most people listening to this, just my feeling is you think of real estate, you're thinking of, buying a duplex and,
right.
Renting it out and then scaling up from there.
Yep. Love it, man. So then, a lot of things, a big thing that a lot of people are struggling with right now, at least that I hear a lot of people struggling with, which I think sucks for everybody right now, is health insurance for entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, right? And I know there's a lot of vehicles out there when it comes to this, but for entrepreneurs, it's dude, and I just changed my plan because I got sick of paying for it. But last year, my plan was like for the best full coverage plan for my family that I could get that was still pretty shitty was like $1,400 a month. Right? So, what's any kind of tips or recommendations there? Because you've got so many different plans. You got HSAs, you've got different things there. I mean, is there any more strategic ways with budgeting and planning to make sure that they're protected in that manner?
There's a ton of relief out there that people just don't know enough about. And so this has been one of the big things I've been hitting on the last couple of months so Arizona, out of all 50 states, that's where we live here, it was the hardest hit state when it came to premiums and deductibles going up. About 175% increase in premiums was the average across Arizona. Across the country is about 50% increase. So I mean, no matter where you're at listening to this, you felt it, right? There's no way you didn't feel it. You felt the pain coming. So, I mean, that's just how it was designed to work. I mean, whether you like Obamacare or not, I mean, it's really irrelevant now because how it was designed to work is everybody's going to get covered. So in order for everybody to get covered, your premiums were going up, right? It's not very hard. We're talking fifth grade math. So, but what can you do about it? So it's kind of crazy. We'll send you I'll make sure we'll link to this episode to a post I have. I'll kind of explain it. So this is kind of crazy, but when Obamacare went into act, there was about 9 different groups of people who were made exempt from having to pay the penalty. So right now it's about $2,500 a year max, 2.5% or $2,500 a year max, whatever's higher, as far as your penalty if you're not inside Obamacare, right? But there's about 9 groups who are exempt from this. Now, this is not a joke, Josh. The number one group, the first group that became exempt from this was members of Congress, right? So if you're a member of Congress, you're exempt, which is crazy. And then if you're Amish, Mennonite, if you're part of a recognized federal tribe, a Native American tribe, you're recognized. And then there was, or if you're incarcerated, if you're a prisoner, if you're homeless making $10,000 or less a year, you're not included in this group, right? So there's one group at the bottom that says if you're a member of a health sharing organization. And so I'm like, health sharing? What the heck is what's this? So I started looking into this. So health sharing, I mean, I could go into depth in this, but just I'll put the post on there so you guys can link to it and read it. But basically what it is it's kind of how insurance was developed back in the 20s and 30s, right? It's the idea that you are going to share in healthcare costs across the board. So how health sharing works is going back to when Obamacare went in, there was a bunch of health sharing companies out there. They were actually for religious institutions. And so one of the rules was they had to have so many reserves and they had to be around for so long. So when Obamacare went into act, it wiped out a good majority of them. There's probably about 10 left, 10 really, really good ones that are left. So how it works basically is it's not insurance. They can't say it's insurance or they're going to be tied to the same rules of Obamacare. It's very similar though. You don't have a deductible. You have what's called an annual unshared amount, okay? Very similar, but they're not the same. You have to reiterate that. They are not the same. You don't have a premium because premiums are insurance, but you do have a monthly share amount. Again, very similar. So let me give you an example here. Is you just said how much are you paying right now? What's your premium right now?
We were at $1,400. Now, I just went to essentially like a major medical standard just because we never really go to the doctor. But
no, so let's just say we're at $1,400 because I think that's pretty normal for people. Okay. So right now, you could be sitting at a $1,400 a month premium with maybe about a $15,000 deductible, give or take, okay, for the year. So if you moved over to health sharing, your premium for a family your size would go to $399 a month, okay? So $399 a month, and your annual unshared amount, which is not a deductible, but man, it's really similar, would be $1,500 for the year. Now, what do they cover in? They cover up to $1 million per incident. Not per year, per incident, per person in your family. So $1 million worth of coverage per incident. You don't have an insurance card. You have a health sharing card, which looks very similar. You give it to the doctor, give it to the hospital if you go. And so how are they able to keep their costs low? This is the biggest question I get. Well, this doesn't make sense. Well, here's some of the things they don't share in, meaning they don't cover, right? But it can't cover because that is insurance. So they don't share in things like psych issues. So if you're on any kind of psych meds or any psych issues at all, they do not cover it. Right? They don't cover it's a religious organization in abortions. They don't cover in sex change operations. It says that right there on their website, right? So there's a bunch of stuff they don't cover in. But I could tell you, being a firefighter, one of the biggest things I see on a daily basis is the psych problems we have out there. It is massive, right? So the fact that they don't cover in psych issues alone, I can tell you that's their bread and butter. That's where they save a ton of money. They also don't cover any kind of long-term medication. So give an example, my mom doesn't have a thyroid, right? So she has to take Synthroid, which is a medication to supplement her thyroid. And so she was looking at it because my dad are both entrepreneurs, and they were getting crushed, 174% increase here in Arizona. And so they're looking at it going, well, they're not going to cover Synthroid. Well, Synthroid is $40 a month.
Yeah.
Right? We'll pay cash. You know what I mean? So you got to look at that. There's no ongoing meds. They have acute meds. So if you have a surgery, they're going to pay for the pain medication on the front end and back end. And after that, it's done. So if you have high blood pressure, right, they're not going to cover your lisinopril. So you either need to get off it or you're going to pay out of pocket. But I promise you, it's going to be a lot less expensive. So that's been a game changer. I can't tell you the number of entrepreneurs that I've had contact me, switch over. And so there's a bunch of them out there. I'm a big fan of Liberty Health Share. Christian Healthcare Ministries is another one. So the reason why I like Liberty Health Share out of all of them is they're all religious-based, but Liberty Health Share has the least amount of hoops you have to jump through. And what I mean there is a lot of the other ones, you have to go get a letter signed by your pastor, proving that you're a believer to get in. And Liberty's like, nope, if you just sign here. So I'll have links to that. I'll show you that. But if you're getting crushed, everybody's getting crushed. If you're getting crushed by the healthcare system, and you're overall healthy, right? You're like thinking, I don't want to be covered in this. You don't have to be, right? And people just don't know that. You don't have to be covered in that. And so I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, love it, man. What about hope for the best, plan for the worst, right? Mm-hmm. So like a lot of people don't. I don't know what the stat is. I haven't read it in a while, but at the time it was over 50% of Americans out there don't have any type of a will in place. I know a lot of people don't have any type of like life insurance plans in place, but entrepreneurs, it's like I look at like my wife who stays at home with her 3 kids. Mm-hmm. If I leave here and get hit by a car, man, she's in a tough spot, right? Now we've protected ourselves mm-hmm. against that stuff, but these other little things that a lot of people don't think about. Is that something that you are real pro in as far as in your financial budgeting approach, kind of taking those worst case precautions like a life insurance policy?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So the mentality out there is you don't need to get a will or you don't need to get life insurance until you're older. Right? And that is so far from the truth. I don't know where it came from. That is so far from the truth. So let's just start off real simple is life insurance. I'm not a fan of whole life insurance. It's about 10 times more expensive than term life insurance. So I always recommend term. Term is the stuff that operates like regular insurance, meaning you pay for something, you put money into this insurance policy, and then you have it for X amount of years, and then it's over. And if you don't die, you don't use it, right? It's not for your whole life. It's for term. Kind of like your auto insurance, right? You pay monthly for your auto insurance. If you don't get an accident, you don't use it, you don't get your money back, right? It's insurance that's there to protect you. That's how term works. Term is about 1/10 the price of whole life. Now, whole life is the most it's the most heavily pushed type of insurance. And I'm sure if you're listening to this right now and you're in the insurance world, you hate me for saying this, but it's the truth. It makes the most money for insurance agents. I'm not upset with people making money because 70% of the policies out there are whole life insurance, so I'm not going to take that away from them. But term life is the way to go. You ask any financial expert, not just myself. Anybody that's not in the insurance world, they will tell you never invest in whole life, right? This is not just me saying this. So invest in term. You need to have 10 to 12 times your income, gross income, in term. So I'll give you an example. I'm just going to use $100,000. We were doing this the other day. $100,000 policy for like a 35-year-old male who's in pretty good shape, not like a smoker or anything like that. You're looking at about $45 a month for about a 25-year policy. So, it's completely doable, right? So let me ask you this. You, Josh, for those listening, $45 a month, is that too much to pay for your family to be taken care of?
Right.
Because I've met with widow clients, and it's tough. It's really tough. That's one of the hardest things I think I do is when after the dust settles, is sitting down with them. And I can tell you this, that when the widow was left a life insurance policy, when the husband or the wife who passed away, does that extra step and just, does the life insurance policy, sets that aside, puts it in place and forgets about it, and the tragedy happens, you get hit by a bus or whatever it could happen, it is a complete life changer in the right direction for your family. Man, think about this. They just lost their dad. They just lost their husband, right? They lost their sole provider, but he had $1 million policy. And you know what that just did? That that paid off their mortgage. So now wife doesn't have to worry about mortgage. Now she doesn't have to do anything for a couple years while she can just regain her strength for $45 a month. And then I met with a client that, they don't know what they're going to do. There's no money coming in. But how do I go to work when I have kids? What do I do? Right? You're out of options. So I always tell people this. I don't care how old you are, get it tomorrow. Like, get life insurance tomorrow. Don't delay this. This is like priority. We're at DEFCON 1 here, like priority, get life insurance. When should you get it? So this is a great question. It's like, well, should I wait till I have kids? No, because as you get older, it gets more expensive, right? Because you're getting closer to death. So I had a client tell me, when she was 19 years old and she was in college, her parents made her get a 30-year term life insurance policy. And she was like, what? I don't want to be spending money on this. It was dirt cheap for her because she was so young. So when she was 24 years old, she had an aortic aneurysm, almost died. I mean, she was in a coma. She came out of it. Well, guess what? She has that policy in place. She's married. She has 2 kids. She's actually a doctor now. But she's also uninsurable, meaning if she went to go get life insurance right now, they would say, absolutely not. You are way too high risk, right? So if she would have waited to have a family, it's not an option for her, right? You just can't get it. They're not going to insure people that are high risk like that. But she had it in place. Yeah. So when should you get it? Tomorrow. Get it tomorrow. And then going towards the will, depending on what state you live in. So like here in the state of Arizona, I can tell you how it works is if you didn't have a will or an estate plan in place, right, and you and your wife, something happens to them, all of your assets, Josh, 100% of your assets get liquefied. They get put in this account. It's called a stop loss account, meaning if your kids are young, your kids are, I think we said 8 years old, 4 years.
874, yeah.
874, okay. So it's going to be in the stop loss account, right? It's going to be divided in 3. Stop loss account, meaning it's not going to lose money, but you ain't going to make anything, right? It's just sitting there. And then when your son or daughter turns 18, they get that money. Okay, your son or daughter turns 18, they get that share. That's how the state operates, right? It's very simple for them. But think about this. You worked really, really hard to build a nest egg, to build a future for your family. Would you want this at this point in your life to just sit in a government stop account and then when they're 18, they just get all of it? Or would you rather be a little more strategic saying, you know what? No. When, if something were to happen to mom and I, the money goes here. It's invested here. This happens to the house. And then, when my son turns 21, he's going to get a little bit. And then when he gets married, he's going to get a little bit more. And then when he's 30, he's going to get a little bit more. And there's going to be steps along the way. Now, this costs a little bit of money to set up, and it takes a lot of time to set up. It's a month-long process, put it that way, meeting with attorneys. We did this about a year ago. I'll tell you this much, though. As soon as that process is over, it wasn't great. It wasn't like, yay, we're meeting with the attorneys to talk about when we die, right? But as soon as that process was over, when our head hit the pillow at night, it's like, man, yeah, I'm fine. Like, if something happens to me, I don't worry. My family is completely taken care of. And then I'll take that a step further. Do this with your family. And I don't know if you do this, but Andrea and I do this all the time is, I'll quiz her saying, Andrea, where is our bank accounts located? Where's our investments located? What's the passwords? How much is in there? Because if something happens to me, say I don't die, but I go into a coma, I want her to have access and know how to get to everything. I want her to know how to operate. This just ties right back into, hey, if you're married, it's our money, right? It's our kids. We share a bed, we share a bank, we share a bank account, right? So do that process with your spouse or whoever, but that should be automatic for them, right? I mean, the worst time to start digging through where is Josh's stuff, where's the money at, where's the accounts, where's the passwords, is when you're not around. Yep. Right? It needs to all be there. So Andrea and I do what's called a legacy box. So I have a box in there that has copies of everything from birth certificates to accounts. We update it quarterly. There's a sheet in there with passwords to everything, and then we keep all the hard copies of that in a safety deposit box. So basically, when we go out of town, my wife and I travel, we go out of town, we let our parents know, hey, there's a box here, and everything's there. It's no guessing work. It's instruction. It's step by step. Does this take time to put together? Absolutely. It takes time to grow your business, right? It takes time to be successful in any aspect of your life, this included.
Yep. No, I couldn't agree more, man. It comes down to always protecting your assets, and that includes hopefully your assets survive you, mm-hmm. right? So. And we're the same way, man. We have a trust that we operate. Every partnership, every LLC, everything goes into that trust, mm-hmm. and it's But it's, the other thing too that I like about it though, going through that process with your attorney, like you said, it's not always fun, but you also get challenged with questions that you don't normally get challenged with, right? And really, really, I don't know if you guys experience this, but it makes you think deep about a lot of different shit, dude, which helps them getting clarity on how to plan for the future.
Yeah. So ask yourself this question right now. If you have kids, ask yourself this question out loud in your mind is, if something were to happen to mom and I, or if something were to happen to dad and I right now, who takes over our kids?
Yeah.
Because that was one of the first questions. And it wasn't, we put it this way, we both said out loud different names.
Yeah.
Wow, we should probably talk about this, right? So that was interesting. Like we didn't realize we weren't on the same page. So yeah, a lot of those things will come up.
Yeah, because if you don't decide and decide properly, the state's going to decide.
Absolutely.
So and then too, then it's like, okay, who gets the kids? Well, I didn't want the people that got the kids controlling the money, right?
Yeah.
Because now they're emotionally attached, and they may give into, oh well, I feel bad that you lost your parents, and okay, you're 16, maybe I'll buy you the Mustang. No, dude, right?
So a good attorney will actually advise you against that. We didn't realize that when we were going through the process, and he was like, no, you're gonna have who out of everybody is the best with money, and we both said the same name, and he goes, okay, why don't we make that the account manager? Yeah, and then family gets the kids, and so it was relieving. But remember, if you don't do any of this, then it's not in place,
right?
So we don't ever predict our own death, right? We just don't know when it's going to happen. So do this as soon as possible, like tomorrow. Like get a couple quotes,
Yep, love it, man. So all right, dude. So I know we talked about this in the last podcast, but I know it's evolved and improved, and a lot. You've added a lot, and you may even have different products than last time we talked. But I know that you do. You talked about clients that we were working with. I mean, you also talked about being a firefighter. So you're a firefighter, plus you have this big business that you also do. I don't want to say a side business. It's a it's a full-time business.
I take offense if you say side business. I'll take offense to that. I'll take a lot of offense to that. Yeah,
it comes back to the 168 hours in a week. Like people always come like, oh, dude, well, I work 40 hours a week. What am I supposed to do over here? I'm like, do the math, dude. You got plenty of time to, you can invest another 80 hours a week still in a business, even though you got a 40-hour week job. So, but with that being said, man, kind of talk to us about what kind of services that you offer today, what kind of products that you offer, and what's the best places to go if those that are watching and listening are like, dude, I need to get this going, but I need some help. Right?
Sure.
And they want to reach out to you.
Sure. So I would say we started the business just starting from scratch. We started the blog, right? So it's moneypeach.com is our blog. And then from there, we put out, right now we're doing weekly articles on everything personal finance. So anything that we have hundreds of articles on there now. So if you have any questions about anything, you can go right to that website, click the search bar, type in a keyword, and it'll bring up a couple articles that are going to be beneficial there. We have our budgeting forms, our cash flow forms on there. They're all free. So, if you're struggling to get on a budget or struggling, start there, okay? The next step is we have an online program. So our online program now, it's been super successful because people get tremendous results from this program, to the point now where I actually 100% guarantee it, saying, look, if you jump inside our program and you don't have tremendous results, not like, this is working, like tremendous results, we let you keep everything and it's 100% money back. So that is right now our bread and butter. That's what I would recommend. If you're thinking like, look, I need to take the next step. I need somebody that's going to help me, get on a plan. I need somebody that's going to help me choose the right insurance. I need somebody that's going to help me figure out which debt to pay out first. I need somebody that's going to be tactful and help me exactly on what should I be investing, a Roth IRAs, a 401k, a traditional IRA. I need some help in any of those aspects. Our online program, it's a 9-week in-depth. I wouldn't say it's in your face, but you're definitely going to learn a lot. You're going to take a lot of action. And so the results we've had, Josh, has been tremendous. We're having people from all over the world now, from Australia to Canada, Mexico City's on board now. We have all over the United States, of course. But we're having people from all different walks of life that basically have never been shown the step-by-step, right? Just, we all have these ideas. We want to build a business. We want to, travel. We want to retire with dignity. We want to be able to take care of our kids and send them to college and all these things, right? But how are we doing this? Are we just talking about it, or do we need to know exactly how to do these things? And so that's why this program was developed. And so, yeah, it's my program. It's me doing all the teaching. And we'll send you a link to that as well. And then one thing I wanted to do for your listeners is I'm going to put together a specific kind of how to get started on a cash flow plan as an entrepreneur. How can you separate business versus personal? How do you pay yourself out of the business? I'll put a video together for that, and we'll have it on the site.
Yep, that's epic, man. Love it, dude. Love it, love it, love it, man. All right, so those that are watching and listening are here, dude, because they're out here listening because they want to go out there and create an epic, amazing life that they know they deserve, right? So with that being said, do you have any last words of inspiration or advice that you'd like to leave people with so they can go out there and do exactly that?
Sure. So take action. I'm going to steal this from a buddy of mine, but take a tornado of action, right? I've interviewed so many different people. Oh, by the way, we do have a podcast as well. Do you care if I mention that?
Yeah, tear it up.
All right, so Money Peach, just if you go into iTunes, search Money Peach, we have a podcast in there where we're doing a lot of similar things as you as far as entrepreneurs, but more of a financial kind of focus there. But so a lot of the people I've interviewed, one of the things I'll ask them is, what separates you from, if you're a top 1% performer, what separates you from the other 99% out there? And it is across the board. And I mean, if you listen to the GS Demo podcast, you know this. You have to take action. Talking does not do anything, right? You need to take a tornado of action. So what does that mean? It means in every aspect of your life. So if you are looking to get control of your finances, don't talk about it. Take action. Tomorrow, get on a budget. Tomorrow, get life insurance. Tomorrow, do something. Right? You don't have to do it all at once. Take action inside your business. I mean, I think the reason why I've had success in growing my business now consistently every single month is it's consistent action. I'm competitive, right? I'm competitive, and I'm always thinking, if Joe's out here doing this much, then I'm doing this much plus 10%, or I'm doing this much plus 20%. I'm not going to be outworked. And you should have that same mindset in your business, is if you are serious about growing the business, really, most people are not going to put in maximum effort. They'll put in effort, but they're not going to put in maximum effort. And what I've learned is if you just put in a little bit more, there's this old saying too that, so water boils at 212 degrees. So I had to look this up, but water boils at 212 degrees. And so many people, they put effort in and they get to 211 degrees. They don't have a thermometer, so they don't know, but they're at 211 degrees and they stop. Yep. Because they're like, no, I tried, right? And they were so close. So maximum effort and don't stop.
Yep. Love it, man. Couldn't agree more. And those that are watching and listening, which really just goes right in alignment with what Chris is saying, but I know in every podcast with this, but information without implementation truly just is start a delusion. Information is not power. It's taking massive action or a tornado of action that creates power in your life. So make sure that you guys take something that you learned today, take massive action on it. Again, we'll have all the links below that Chris mentioned and referenced today below right in there. So you guys take massive action, man, and take this stuff seriously, right? I mean, you owe it to yourself. You work so hard for that income. You owe it to yourself to be, to go out there and create that success. And it starts with that tracking and that measuring. So again, you guys, thank you so much for watching and listening. Chris, man, as always, this is an honor, brother.
Hey, I love being here, man. It's cool.
Yep. Thank you so much, man. All right, you guys, we'll see you next time.